I'm just so honored to have with us today David Rubin. He's the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, which is in the region of Samaria, or better known as the West Bank. He's authored quite a few books. I have his new one right here. It's called Peace for Peace in the Middle East and Israel in the New Middle East, right there. There's a picture of it on the screen, and we'll tell you where you can get a copy of that. He's lecturing in the area, and he's been around. He's been down in Phoenix. He's going over to Bend. He'll be back in Grants Pass. And before we get into our discussion, Grants Pass, 10:30 Sunday morning at what church?
At the Lion's Gate.
Lion's Gate. All right, so for you folks there in Grants Pass, you may want to go visit that church Sunday and hear him speak. Nice to have you.
Well, good to be with you, Brad.
I'm just so delighted to Skype you in when we've had you the few times. And you've said a couple things in our previous interviews that kind of put my brain on tilt. And I just thought, you know what, we need to rethink some of these things that we're dealing with as Christians when it comes to Israel. But first of all, the president's heading to Israel. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, the president is coming on a mission to smooth things over in public and to intensify things in private.
Yeah.
And, on the outside, we're not going to see any of the pressure that's going to be put on Israel. We're not going to see any of the tension most likely in the relationship between Obama and Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister. What we are going to see in public is a lot of warm and fuzzy statements about the unbreakable bonds between Israel and the United States, and how the relationship between the United States and Israel is rock solid. That's what we're going to be hearing from President Obama in public.
Right.
In private, it's going to be another story. In private, he's going to be putting intense pressure on Israel to withdraw from its biblical heartland, which is Judea and Samaria, the regions that surround Jerusalem, Samaria north of Jerusalem, Judea south of Jerusalem, the areas that the world calls the West Bank, that most people call the West Bank. Even though it's just a fictional term, it's not any term that you're going to read about in the Bible.
Right, right.
So this is what's going to be happening. There's going to be pressure, intense pressure in private, and sweet words and smiles in public.
All right, now this is his first visit since he's been president, long overdue, and yet his treatment of Netanyahu when he's come to Washington is all but, well, it's been embarrassing. Quite frankly, it's been disrespectful. But Prime Minister Netanyahu goes and addresses the joint session of Congress, and it's still noted as one of the great speeches of all time. He had an incredible response to that speech. I have played excerpts of that speech on the air several times. I would say that Prime Minister Netanyahu, at least in today's world, he is the representation of the true free world at the moment. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think so to some extent. I would like to see him looking to biblical principles a little bit more in making some of his decisions.
Such as?
Such as the whole problem of the peace process. You have to understand that the peace process does not equal peace.
Right.
The peace process for 35 years has been a case of banging our proverbial heads against the wall for the cause of land for peace. And land for peace, or the two-state solution, whatever you want to call it. And what it means basically is Israel carving out that chunk, that big chunk from its central mountain range, and which is Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank, and handing it over to the Palestinian Authority, which is a quasi-governmental agency that is basically a band of so-called respectable terrorists.
Yeah.
And Netanyahu doesn't seem to understand that you can't do that, that if you do that, then you are committing national suicide. And I think he understands the dangers, but he's willing to take the risk. And I don't think that Israel can afford to take the risk.
All right, now he just recently came through re-election, and he had to put together a majority. He's done that. Does that majority represent his point of view, or what you're saying?
Well, it's a mix. I would say probably a majority of that coalition represents his what I would call centrist point of view, whereas there is a very strong minority in his coalition now that represent views closer to my own. It's not an accident that my book is called Peace for Peace.
Right.
Because as I said, we've been pushing this land for peace formula for 35 years. It hasn't worked. All it's brought to us is thousands of Israeli terror victims. And it's time that we start adopting a new formula, which is peace for peace. If they're really sincere about peace, then they will extend their hand in peace unconditionally, just as we are extending our hand in peace unconditionally. They've never done that.
Yeah.
They are demanding a step towards Israel's destruction. That's something that we should not be doing.
You know, as much as I respect George W. Bush, I strongly disagreed with his two-state Israel policy. And I think that, quite frankly, that policy damaged him greatly in the end. Where is Israel in the two-state policy? I know you're against it. But
well,
are the citizens for it?
Increasingly, no.
Okay.
The Israeli population has started to understand the dangers in it. You know, when a poll is presented and says, "Do you want to have two states living side by side in peace?"
Yeah, no such thing.
Then you'll get a majority in the polls. But when you say, "Do you want to have the Palestinian Authority, which represents terrorist organizations, overlooking our one international airport from the high mountains of Samaria," then you get an overwhelming majority that says no. But that would be the practical implication of handing over those territories to them.
All right. Where is Netanyahu with the red line on Iran? He said we're there. What does there mean?
There means we're very close to the point where they will be able to produce nuclear weapons.
Now, our administration say we're a year out. Why wait? Netanyahu is saying we're there. So you expect something to happen?
I think that the meetings are going to be very intense next week, and I'll tell you. I said it's going to be all smiles on the outside.
Yeah.
That's before the meetings. Once they've had their meetings, it's very possible that we're going to see on Netanyahu's face, even if they try to keep it private, he has a hard time hiding it. If the meetings have been intense, if intense pressure has been put on the Prime Minister, it's going to show.
All right. In the meantime, we are sending Israel very mixed signals. We're saying, yeah, we got this strong bond. We don't want any daylight between our relationship. On the other hand, we're sending F-16s and we're sending all kind of weapons to Syria and beyond. How do you interpret that?
Well, the Middle East is up in flames right now. It's not an Arab Spring. It's not a pro-democracy movement. What we're seeing is what I call an Islamic tsunami, okay, which actually is the title of my previous book.
Yeah.
An Islamic tsunami, meaning the spread of Islamic fundamentalism throughout the Middle East, and particularly Israel's neighbors like Syria and Egypt, where the Muslim Brotherhood carries heavy weight, and also Al-Qaeda in Syria. That's who President Obama is giving financial aid to. 60 million in Syria to the Muslim rebels. It makes no sense. According to American values, you would think that he would be standing up for American values in the Middle East. He's not. And that has created a very dangerous situation for Israel. And I'm very concerned about this, and most Israelis are very concerned about this. Netanyahu as well is very concerned about the rise of Muslim fundamentalism throughout the Middle East and the United States' role in that.
All right. Now, if Israel decides to neutralize Iran's nuclear capabilities, you're going to have pressure from the north, from Lebanon and Egypt at the same time. Is Israel prepared to handle protection all the way around, including neutralizing Iran at the same time?
Well, the Israel Defense Forces have been actively at work in preparing for this possibility and eventuality for a long time. We're aware that there are well over 100,000 missiles being pointed at Israeli cities as we speak, from the Hezbollah terrorist organization in Lebanon, from the Hamas terrorist organization further south, and from Syria itself, and from Iran. So it's a very, very dangerous situation, which we are well aware of. Our leaders are hard at work in preparing for that possibility, and whether it's going to come from them offensively, or whether we're going to have to respond, or whether we're going to have to launch a preemptive strike. That remains to be seen.
All right, let me just plug the book one more time because I have one more question. It's called Peace for Peace, Israel in the New Middle East, David Rubin. Let me have you check it out. It's put out by Shiloh Israel Press. Can they get it at Barnes & Noble, Amazon? Do you know?
It's up there on Amazon.com, and there's also a phone number, 1-800-431-1579. They can dial directly and order it.
Okay, get a copy of this book. The last time we talked, David, you said basically to us Christians, you guys re-elected Obama. And that was in response to the question that I asked you. Certainly, you understand the faith community in America is with Israel, but you said, yeah, but you re-elected Obama. A stunning response, a stunning response. I got incredible residual effect from that response. What do you want the Christian community to do to show our support? Put pressure on the White House? Send you an email? Send Netanyahu?
Several things.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I'm not saying that all Christians voted for Obama. Obviously, that's not the case, but many Christians didn't vote.
Right.
And so
that is the case.
So ultimately, he got elected. There are several things that people who care about Israel, who want to stand with Israel, should be doing. Number one, pray for the United States-Israel alliance. Number two, be actively involved. Tell your representatives and write to them. Send 2-sentence letters telling them that you want them to be not just standing with Israel in some sort of amorphic way, but you want them to be against the Land for Peace formula. That the Land for Peace formula is dead. We have to start talking about peace for peace. A fair, equal arrangement.
Right. All right. What else?
And I think that people should stand with Israel in practical ways as well. You know, the organization that I started after my son and I were wounded, the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, is a concrete way of standing with Israel.
Let me encourage you to check that out. Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, as David and his son work together on, and it really does remarkable thing. And they can Google that. And
they can Google it. They can just go to ShilohIsraelChildren.org.
Okay, ShilohIsraelChildren.org, and support them there. Wish I had a week with you. You'll come back, and you'll be speaking again coming up this Sunday back in Grants Pass, 10:30 at the Lionsgate Church. So you may want to visit him there and get his book, Peace for Peace. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.